Hello, and this is Satya Prakash Tripathi, uh, and this is my third video on entity framework code first approach. So, so our today's topic is migrations. Uh, now, now, in order to understand migrations, uh, let's go back and see like what we had discussed uh, in our second video. Now, now I would request everybody to like view my to view all my videos uh, on entity framework, the code first approach. Otherwise, it would become very difficult to understand. So, like this is the code that we had written earlier. Now, if you like remember, so if you like remember, this was our employee class. So it had all these three properties. Then the employee context class, and we created this DB initializer class. Now, this was used so that we could insert or seed that database during initialization. Now if you can see here that the employee DB initializer, okay, it inherits from drop create database always. There is one more way. I can use drop create database. Okay, and the second one is drop create database if model changes. Now the problem here is that if your model changes, okay, or if you are inserting more records or whatever, your database will get dropped, and it would be created from scratch. Now, this is what happened, I believe before entity framework 4.3, but in 4.3, entity framework introduced migrations. Now like what migration does is, so like what migrations does is that if there's any change in your entity classes in your model, then it does not drop the database. So it just adds your changes to the existing database. Now that's a lot of improvement. Instead of dropping your existing the database and creating from the scratch. So again, for migrations, there are two different approaches. So like one is the automatic, and the other one is through that code. The other one is not automatic, and there is an option for automatic as well. So let's go and quickly see how the migration works. So here what I would do is I would quickly create classes. Now this is web application, and so I have already created a page that has this data grid. So what I would do is I would quickly add a class So I have added an employee class. Instead of straight adding here, I could have added a folder, but for this demo purpose, I am just adding it here itself. So I'm adding here 3 properties. So let me add okay, so I'm adding here one more property. It's age. So let me quickly add get and the set. Okay, so there is one thing, like before I start, you would be having this question that why do we have to like drop the database, means why did we like use in our previous code, fine, why did we use drop create database always? Now the thing is that in your entity classes, you have 3 properties, and entity framework generates their table. Okay, along with that, it creates, I have this sample database that we had created earlier. So along with the tables, it creates one more table called underscore migration history, and this table contains a hashed data which matches your entities, your models. Now in your model, if you change any property, or if you add any property, then it matches with the hash data, and it would throw an error. It would throw an error saying that something has changed. Okay, so in order to have your application run successfully, there was one way to like drop the database and create it from the scratch every time your application ran, or you could add it in the global.as ASX, in the application start event handler. So okay, so now what I was doing is I've already added the employee. I quickly add employee DB context class. Okay, just a second. So I quickly add employee DB context. So it's added. Now using system dot data dot entity. So I've already added the entity the DLLs using the NuGet package manager. I'm sorry. So this is going to return a DB set employee. Okay. And I would name it employees. Done. So now let's quickly add the connection string, and I've already written it. So this is my connection string here, and this would be exactly similar to my my employee DB context. So let me add it. It should be similar. Fine. There are ways where you can have it different, but yeah, as of now I am just using it similar to my employee DB context class name, and the database that would get created is my test database. So let us quickly refresh here. Okay, so there are just two databases. Let me go to my application here, and in the employees.aspx.cs I would create an employee context class object and then get the employees. Employee DB context. So employees, and now I just do that binding, data bind. Okay, so this is done. Just give me a minute. Okay. So the data binding is done. So we have everything. Now let's run the application and see. Okay, I would get a small error, so I am just closing it. I know. I need to convert this to list because it returns a DB set. Hence, I have to change it to list. Excuse me. Okay, so let's wait. And once this executes, you should have a database here. Let me refresh. Okay, so I have this database. Now let me add one more class here, or what I can do is, okay, let me try adding one more class called department. So I'm just adding. Okay, I'm having some problem here. Let me check. Okay, so the department is added now. Now in the employee DB context class, let's return a DB set of department. Okay. So I've added this. Now in the ASPX, let me add one more grid. And let me just auto format it so that it looks good. Okay. So this is done. Now CS grid view 2 dot data source equals to employee context dot department. Okay, this should be departments, I'm sorry. Let me go and change it first. No. Okay, let me just go and change it to departments. So this is done. Let me go back. So let me execute it and see what happens. This is some different error. I don't know why I get this. Oh, I'm really sorry. Let me go here. In a department class, I haven't added anything, so that's my fault. So let me say this as ID. Yeah, so in the department, I have added an ID and a name. Now let's execute and see what happens. Okay, so now it's saying that the model backing the employee DB context has changed since the database was created. Consider using code first migrations to update the database. So now Entity Framework has understood that that the model and your database is not matching. So like something has changed. So like this is the scenario where migrations come in. So like what I would do is I would just comment out this here and here. So let me execute it again. And I believe that this time it should be okay. Okay, so everything is okay, there's no problem here. And the reason you are not able to see any data, because our table is empty. So now what we would do is, you go to the tools, to the NuGet package manager, and then the package manager console. So here you just type in enable, you can write enable and press tab, enable migrations, you select it, and then watch this place very carefully here. Okay, so I write enable migrations and then press enter. You would see, okay, I would stop this here right now. I would delete the database. Now the reason being that if you see here two class files are created. I don't intend to explain about this right now, about this first class. Okay, hence and it got created because the database was existing. Okay, so I would delete the migrations folder here and delete the database as well, because we will discuss about the first class in our next video. So let me again build, and here you see that the database is deleted, so it's not there at all. Now let's go to the package manager console and hit enable migration again. So it's checking if the context targets an existing database. So no, I've already deleted it. So it's enabled now. Let's go here, and it creates this configuration class. So if you see here very carefully, it has the seed method that we had earlier in our database initializer class. Okay, in our previous video. Now here you can see the automatic migration enabled is false. Now in this video we will talk about the automatic migrations. Okay, the migrations using the automatic way. So I will make it as true. Now let me execute this. Let me refresh. Database is not there. I'm executing it. Now this would create the database again with the employee table. So it should create the database here now. Let me refresh. Okay, so it's created and it has the employees table. Let me close it. Now there is one piece of code that I have forgotten to write here is, okay, let me just write the constructor here, employee db context. Okay, so database dot set initializer. So it's asking for your context. So mine is employee db context, and then new okay, then migrate database to their latest version, and it wants your context. So just a second, what it wants is your employee context db context and your configuration class. So your configuration class is here. So you just first take in the namespace. Okay, so this and the configuration. Okay, so I guess I'm done. Okay. So yeah, it's the same thing that we had in our previous code, where we wrote that database dot set initializer. So this is my previous code, and if you see here in the employee context, we had that database dot set initializer, and we were creating the object, that initializer object. But here we are using that configuration, the configuration class that has been created by the entity framework when we invoke the enable -migrations command. So this is done. Now what I want to show you is, let me just enable this one, and here what I would do is just uncomment the code. Now previously when we executed this code, it had thrown an error saying that basically that the model does not match your database. So I would execute again, and as per the expectations, this department table should get created. Okay, so it has run successfully. Let me refresh it, and you would see that it's created. So that's the beauty here. Now there's one more thing. I go to the employee and I add one more property. Yeah, so I've added one more property. Now let's execute and see what happens. This will throw, as far as I understand, probably this would throw an error, because there is one more property that we have to like set. That's what I understand, but I think it has run successfully. Okay, so yeah, it has run successfully, but what I would say is there is one more property. Let's go to the configuration. There's one more property that we should use basically, and that is automatic automatic migration data loss allowed. I yeah, yeah, the reason I think it, yeah, it did not throw an error because the table does not have data. So let's do one thing. Let's just create a fine. So let's try inserting some data. So I'm just using their method that they have said in that above, in the above example. Uh, just a minute. I'm just thinking. Let me do one thing. So I'm just adding on my own way here employee and ID equals to, so ID I don't need to insert. James White, and age goes, okay. So I've executed it and it should insert this data here. Okay, so it has inserted the data. Now let me add, I'm just checking if it works properly or not. That, like, when I add one more property, so I'm adding score. Let me see what happens. If it works fine, then it's okay, but I'm just trying to like validate here. Okay, so yes, so it has inserted one more record, it executed that one. So instead of add, if we had used add or update, then it wouldn't have done that. But anyways, yeah, I was thinking that like this won't work, but it has. So like that's okay. But the thing is that remember that there is one more property. Yeah, as I was explaining you, that inside the configurations there is one more property called automatic migrations enabled, and you can use it. Sometimes what happens is you add one more column and then you do the migrations. Then it says that actually, like, what happens internally, it checks that whether the existing data data would get modified or what. So hence it throws an error saying that no, it would actually there would be some sort of data loss. So if we like set this property true, then I'm telling the system that it's okay, and this one. So I'm telling it that okay, fine, the data loss is allowed. So like this was our third video. It went bit long, and there is some more thing on that migrations, and that we would cover in our fourth video. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye for now.